All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're going to be talking about the Nova builds refresh today because Nova is the highlight of the update. I'm not talking about Kome yet because, God, I'm hoping she gets buffed. So for those of you on YouTube that have not seen me talk about Kome yet, she's not great. So hopefully she gets a buff pass and will be a little bit better before we have to talk about her. But Nova is excellent. First and foremost, to talk about the shards that I have on her. I've got 3 Tau duration shards on her. 2, I think you want definitely for this build. They could be regular, just like a bunch of regular shards is also totally fine. But one way or another, Nova is still going to want a lot of duration. Then I have 1 equilibrium shard. You can just use regular equilibrium in the build, and that's going to be fine. But you can also kind of just move it over here. And then I have an empty slot. This empty slot can be a lot of different things. And honestly, even the 3rd duration slot can be a lot of different things too. You can do Tau Parkour Speed, you can do another Equilibrium Shard, you can do even more duration, you can do a Strength Shard, and they're all probably going to be just different versions of the same amount of good, just good at different things. So you can really kind of put whatever you want in here if you're maximizing your Nova, but the actual build itself looks like this. So this build is a few different things. Number one, it's taking advantage of course, the big change for Nova, which is that Spiva and Slova are now just Nova. Which is that you can tap in order to slow all of the enemies in an AoE, and you can hold it in order to speed all of the enemies in the AoE up. Both of them are based on strength. They both max out the speed that they go and the slow that they go at 150% strength. You'll note that we're at 144% strength. This is before Molt Augmented, so we do need to kill a couple enemies before we're at the cap for our speed and our slow, but I don't think that's a big deal, and this build does a lot of other things that we're going to be taking advantage of as well. So the totality of what we got going on here is obviously Nova wants duration. She's always wanted duration, and you could theoretically squeeze some more duration into here, but we're just on prime continuity, and that's going to have to be enough in, addition to our duration shards to get us to 200% duration, which gives us a nice big AoE on our molecular prime, and plenty of Null Star orbs, 24 of them, which is way more than enough because our strength increase is also going to make the damage reduction on these particles go up, which also, the Null Star affects now everything in terms of DR. It's going to affect our shields and our health, and we're running Primed Redirection for that reason, because Primed Redirection just gives us a lot of shields to work with, which is going to be important for a thing later. But this just makes us nice and tanky with 1,000 shields that we're going to then make functionally invincible later. Otherwise, we're on Augur Reach and Stretch. No overextended in this build, just because I wanted to keep... You just don't need more range than this, really. And having to deal with the negative 60% strength is just kind of tough. The thing that this range is for Antimatter drop. This is now a moddable range, so this is 26 meters of range on the radius for Antimatter drop, which is absolutely huge. I had this modded higher earlier, but I have found that it's just not necessary. So unless you're going to, need to hit every enemy that exists in the planes, you just don't need more range than this in almost any tile set, and you can shoot so many of them everywhere that you just don't really need more range than just Augur Reach and Stretch together. And you also want to squeeze at least 1 Augur mod in here so you can get some of that shield generation from casting your abilities. With casting your abilities, we have Streamline, so 30% efficiency just to get some efficiency in there. Again, we don't want to really take the negative duration from fleeting here because we do want a good chunk of it for all of our abilities. So just getting the 30% ability efficiency here is just fine. Notably, this is the slot that should be a fully leveled Equilibrium if you're not going to run any Equilibrium shards. I very much believe that you should just be running a full Equilibrium if you're on 0 Equilibrium shards, because it is a huge amount of energy influx into your build. Speaking of that, we're running Prime Flow so that we can hold all of the energy we're going to be getting from all of the Equilibrium procs so that we have a nice cushy base of energy to sit on for whenever we're too far away from enemies, because we're launching Antimatter drops at them from very far away and not picking up the orbs that they drop, and then we'll be over there eventually to restock. And then outside of all of that business, we're on Cross Projection because this is kind of generally good and we're not running an armor strip. Prime Sure-Footed because being knocked down is like one of the very few ways to die on this build. And Molecular Fission is just purely quality of life. This just makes it so that the enemies that are hit by Null Star get primed. And whenever they die, they give you orbs back. So basically, if you're killing enemies, you never have to recast Null Star or think about the damage reduction you're getting from it ever, which is really nice quality of life. Speaking of not having to think about it ever, we're also running Eclipse. Notably, this is a much safer version of this build. You can run Roar here, and then everything will do more damage, and it's a little more team-oriented because you can give Roar to your entire squad, who will also be doing damage. But in terms of Eclipse, this makes you functionally invulnerable when combined with Nullstar, Primed Redirection, and Arcane Aegis. Because in effect, Nullstar gives us 90% damage reduction, so we take our 1,000 shields, multiply it by 10,000 shields. And then Eclipse gives us 75% DR, multiply that 10,000 by 4, you get 40k. And then you have the 50% regular damage reduction that shields have, so you double it and you get 80,000 EHP at a very, very basic level on your shields. And then you let Aegis proc. Aegis procs 3% of the time whenever your shield gets damaged, and it will just constantly fill your shield back up to max for 12 seconds, where it can then proc again, giving you a loop of invincibility, where as long as you're keeping up your 1 and your 3, you basically can never die unless you get killed by Toxin. But even getting killed by Toxin, you have 97.5% damage reduction. So it's going to be very hard to kill you, especially if enemies are at, 25% of their usual speed. But with this build, you can just speed enemies up even if you're solo and kill them all. So this is just overall just speed, Slova, killing everyone with AoE from Antimatter drop, and very good stuff. I am going to show another, basically it's a lower level build for speeding through missions, but this is what I would generally want to run. Notably, for filling R2, we're using the Kuvahak. A lot of things work. The Felarx works, the Boar works, the Strun works. The Strun doesn't work as well as I'd want it to, but pretty much any shotgun will function very well for this, and also a number of other things that you can find. Kuvahak is probably the easiest to get that is also good for a lot of other things, so that's why I've decided to go with this. The build for it is this. You don't even need close to this. This is the new player variant if you're looking for it. And then this is way overkill for shooting whatever else we want to shoot, and going to be way more than we need for filling our orbs. Other than that, the melee and the secondary don't matter. We're messing around with the Stropha and stuff, which is another thing that can charge your orbs, but I don't think particularly well. And then in terms of companion, we're bringing the Panzer. Figured I should show a companion that has a new build going on so people can get an idea of what you can run with the new beast stuff. And the Panzer is an old favorite that has a lot of potential right now. So for the Panzer, this is what the build is on there. We're running the new Resourceful Retriever mod, so we have about a 20% chance to get double resources whenever we pick resources up. We also are running Tenacious Bond and Reinforced Bond, so we get 60% fire rate always because we're over 1,200 shields. And we also get that 1.2 final crit damage multiplier because our claws have over 100% crit, which is way more than enough. But yeah, just generally, this is what the build looks like on the Vulpa, and the new claws the Vulpa has looks like this. You do not need all of this stuff on here. In fact, everything to the right of Bite and down is totally unnecessary. You just want Elusive Posture, which will give your companion 50% evasion and also make them not stupidly get in your way and attack a bunch of enemies and then get killed. That's what Elusive Posture does. They'll still use their viral quills and other abilities, and all that helpful stuff will still happen, so it's great. And then Bite just gives you enough crit in order to turn on Tenacious. All this other stuff really doesn't matter. It's just on here because if you were going to use this to attack, this is what you would run. But in this case, we're not, so you don't need to worry about getting all of these brand new mods. A lot of us will already have Bite. So yeah, that's what's going on here. And then this is what's up with Nova. I'm going to show the tankiness off first, which is we're just going to spawn in like the Orokin battle group. We're just going to turn the tankiness on. I am going to have to recast my 1 because it's not usual for me to not be killing enemies. So whenever my 1 gets too low, I will have to re-up it because enemies need to die to do it passively with vision. But enemies dying is pretty normal, and you can see that we are functionally pretty much invincible here. These enemies are not really going to do much here, and even if we just take them and speed them up a whole lot, they still are going to have a very, very hard time getting through our shields. Even if they are doing 4 times the amount of damage they would normally be able to do, they don't see much success here. And R2 is very good. Oh, as long as it's not immediately touching an enemy, it's very good, and they're all dead. Or at least many of them are dead. It doesn't do, infinity damage. You still, will need to clean up a little bit. But in general, you can just launch this, and it'll kill everyone that the orb can see. Really important stuff with how the orb works is you launch it out, and it's slow. You charge it up, and then you just kind of hit 2 again to send it to where you want it to go. Notably, for this, you can send it around corners by just like shooting it, sending it forward, and then aiming it back. So you can really get it to go wherever you want. Launch it down a hallway, kill everyone in the side rooms wherever it lands, and do a lot of longer range things with it, which is why the range doesn't need to be that crazy, because you launch it down halls into wherever it needs to kill all the enemies that you can't see, because it will be able to see them. And in grouping, because Nova's stuff has all been changed to blast, whenever enemies are grouped up, it does this. And it basically kills everybody very, very easily. So launching it into enemies that are grouped up is very good, which is why Nautilus is also an incredible companion for Nova. And that's pretty much what we're looking at for Nova. She's invincible, and she can just kill everybody with orbs while doing Spiva stuff. And also you have the option of slowing all the enemies if you want them to be even less of a threat than they already are, which is quite nice. So yeah, we're going to take this into Steel Path and show it off, and it's really good. It's absolutely excellent. Just fantastic. Coming to the Steel Path. This will be trivially easy. I also think the chat has reminded me to mention is that her 4 will now give you health orbs if enemies are slowed, and give you energy orbs if enemies are sped up. So it's just a great source that helps with equilibrium proccing and stuff, which is why you kind of always want an equilibrium effect.
Predictable. As expected, Grenier have shut down environmental systems, sending modified life support capsules.
Yeah, looking at the map is pretty vital here for seeing where your 2 should go. You kind of want to launch it into doorways. So like whenever these guys open this door, oh, whoops, hit the wall. Launch it in there. Open door inside to kill enemies. Generally very good. Because you're killing enemies at such distance, very often you'll have to like go get all of your energy and stuff like I just did there. But it's not a big deal. Also, we're just going to do Spiva things because I know these enemies are not really going to be much of a threat to me, if I'm honest. So we can just blow them all up and make them get to us much faster. Notably, a change that is in right now that is maybe going to be reverted is that her speed wave is much faster and goes like the full distance quicker. But that might be getting equalized with the slow wave, which goes out slower but lingers longer. So we're not sure if like the slow or the very quick speed wave out is going to stay that way. I'm personally like not partial to it one way or another. I think that like both are going to be fine, and it's not going to change the build at all. But it is something to be aware of if you're wondering why your 4 Spiva stuff is like really short. It's just because it's also much faster. Whenever enemies are too close though. Here we go. Get another bunch of energy. Also, if you're having any energy problems with this build, there's also always the option of running Death Cube instead of something like a Panzer. Because Death Cube can generate both energy and health orbs for you with all of like his assists and whatever else he's doing. Also, I think I mentioned already before, like a companion like Nautilus can do a whole lot for you as well. There's our first Aximus, who's going to give us a nice little chunk of energy there. And it really is because you're like generally staying pretty far away from enemies. Or, well, you're killing them far away, not necessarily staying far away from them on any purpose. That it is nice to have the overage on energy that you can just hold with Prime Flow. Also, of course, you can just use Xeneric because Nova's not restricted to like not regenerating energy. So you can pretty much just do whatever you want to with that. Make sure you're throwing on Eclipse all the time and just throwing her 2 out. Also, of course, you're having double damage on all the enemies. And in most content, especially if you're using the slow, you can swap a Mirage's 3 to be damage increases instead. And there's like certainly no problem with doing that. Like if enemies are slowed, you're going to be more than safe enough, I would say, with just your 1, and then you can take care of the damage bonus from the other side of Eclipse that we don't use nearly as much, but it's nice that you can take advantage of both on this build.
Another life support capsule is now available.
Yeah, you just get to do Nova ICBM things. And just show the enemies what an explosion's like on the inside. And these are like Not even particularly great tiles for her. I'm at like, you know, a little over 100 kpm. I did do a run earlier, which was like kind of decent tiles. That was 1400 in 10 minutes, which is quite nice. But it is going to be like, you know, a little tile set dependent, depending on like what you can get going personally. And also it's always a bit lower whenever I'm like talking on video about like what Nova do and such like that. Also, don't forget you can send it up. Like if you just like needed to kill everyone in a room, you can send it up into the ceiling and it'll blow up around corners. Because it is from the orb's point of view that it is line of sight, not from Nova's. So like if you need to kill all the enemies in there and over there, they can see everything from here. So it's a thing that you would have to think about a little bit on like where you would like the orb to actually go. Also, doors that open really tall, you can often send it like above and it'll kill everyone like inside like a separate room. Like here, if I wanted to kill the enemies around this corner, I just fire here and it kills all these guys there. So it's, you know, a little bit of a perspective thing to do, but not a big deal at all. On Acolytes, it's okay. I would suggest probably, you know, just shooting them, because just shooting them is pretty good as well. But, you know, you can shoot a bunch of orbs at the Acolytes as well, but all of your damage bonuses and stuff are going to be more than fine. For just normally killing an Acolyte or a Lich or whatever else. I will note the orb, not very good against these shields, but you can just pop that off real quick, like, and then kill him with the orb. Because, like, whatever weapon you're using to charge your orb is probably capable of destroying that shield instantly, and you should be able to count on that happening. But yeah, you can just get them. Launch that through the doorway, kill all those guys. Have huge amounts of damage reduction. Oops. Killed them too close to us. The Panzer's doing its thing with spreading viral as much as it can anyway. It's not like a clean spread of it. We are using Fractalized Reset for anyone that did not notice on the Hex, so that's why the reload is extremely fast. Also pretty notable with it is that allows you to like use this ability with like the alternate fire for the Heck and get that really fast reload still. Which is like not necessary at all and doesn't actually make the orb any stronger, but if you wanted to shoot other enemies with it, you could like, you know, fire the alt fire with your Kuva hack, like cast your one, fire it, get the super fast reload, fire it again, and like you could cast your one to kind of proc Fractalized if you wanted to dump ammo that way. Also, as you probably have clearly noticed, Nova is good enough that we can just like talk about theoretical things and not shoot enemies, and she's going to be just fine in terms of survivability. At least with Eclipse on. If you don't have Eclipse, maybe you have to pay a bit more attention to what the enemies are throwing at you. But that is also like, if you want to pay attention to the count on your one, and maybe you run Adaptation or something, and you want to go Roar, there's a lot of different build options that will work really well for her, but this is what we found that seems to work the best for her. Right now we're at 6.5 minutes, 700 kills, so considering all of the like goofing off that I'm doing, I think that's pretty good. Personally, pretty compelling, especially considering this, you know, I'm not trying to optimize the tile at all for her or anything like that, which you would normally want to do. And also just the raw survivability, like, I'm just going to sit in this Jade Eximus, and I think it's going to be just fine. Oh. And it's scaled up just a little bit high, but we're alright still. Yeah, maybe you can't just sit in everything, but it's not quite Revenant survivability. I think this is actually the better tile, or a better tile. Yeah, this one's a really fun one, actually. This is one of the tiles we were hanging out in for a while. Fun thing about this one is that whenever enemies spawn down here, you can actually just slide that down there and kill enemies that are spawning at the bottom door. And this is like the kind of, like, you know, thing to think about with, like, this build, which I think is really nice. And then, like, also, you just have, like, this here to launch the orb up there if you needed to kill enemies that are, like, up around here. All kinds of, like, neat, just, like, essentially trick shots that you're doing as Nova that are also just a very effective. Launching it down here, killing the enemies you can't see. So like it's line of sight, but it's line of sight where you can kind of subvert it if you know where the enemies are. Which, as it turns out, you have a map. You can pretty easily know where most enemies are going to be. Also launching at like very large distances to like kill like Xmas that are across the map from you. So like the actual effective range of this is considerably more than you might think. You do have to actually hit though. That part's very important. Yeah, killing enemies that are like near you. Launching it down here, putting one downstairs. Getting all the enemies killed down there. And like if you have the enemies like kind of spawns nailed down, you can actually just like let them spawn in places. And then launch this, and they're all clumped together because they've been slowed. So just all kinds of good things that you can do with the 2 version of this build. There's also a build that uses her 1 and just spams it. That uses the augment we're using here and also her neutron star. That is more just like 1 spam where it applies her 4 as you're rooting around. But it's more so for like lower level exterminates and stuff. It works on Steel Path, but like not nearly as well as something like this, I would say. It's also considerably easier to kill than a build like this. And this is like safe to be Spiva all the time, which I think people would generally probably prefer. Oh, whoops. That was me shooting me. Don't do that. The malice bubble on us. Now he's hanging out in it. How rude. There he goes. He's dead now, though. We'll speed everybody up. Oh, it's 10 minutes. We're at like 991 kills, but like I said, lots of goofing off on our part, and you can optimize this a lot more with different tiles and things like that in order to get much, much higher amounts of kills. But we are going to head out. But yeah, functionally immortal, launching nukes everywhere, slower speed people as you like with this build. It's real good. Turns out it's quite nice. Also, the speed works even on Xmas units now for getting them closer to you faster as well, which honestly probably helps your energy economy in the situation where you're not dying, at least. But yeah, that's gonna do it for the Nova builds videos. Also, the deluxe skin, I think, looks great. So you're basically Oppenheimer with this build? Yeah, you're Novaheimer. I just did this in ESO when I was out damaging and out killing a Saren. That sounds also about right. Yeah, that's gonna do it for Nova video.
All right, we're back from TennoCon, and the Streamathon is going to continue. But there will, of course, I will try and have there be videos as well as the Streamathon at the same time if I can. Also, thank you to the $10 patrons: Athean, Alex Parnham, Arbiter Daydream, Benuven, Brutus Salazar, Canalatra, Club World 3, Dylan Dworsky, Athrain, Afan, James Harstern, JC4 Science, Josh, Lou Zanth, Malik X Williams, Mark Smith, Mikakel, Minty Ginja, Michta, Nerve, Ruby, Sanyu, Skur, Sharp247, Tamrielic Wastelander, Tester ZWP, The Coupon of Death, Tomeworm, Victor Palmer, Waifu Wars, Wildado1, and Sarah Fear. And of course, all of my other patrons as well. It is incredibly appreciated for all of your support. But yeah, we're gonna try and keep the videos a little bit more regular while the Streamathon continues. And of course, we do have a free-to-play through coming soon.